Hello listeners, and welcome to Let's Chat, one of a many an episode where we have a guest speaker sharing an amazing journey towards a better way of being through a teaching, a practice, or from a passion of helping others through mainstream or complementary healing practices. Today we will be chatting with Tanya Wilson, a qualified and experienced Adelaide counsellor, psychotherapist, offering clients a deep well of knowledge and compassion. Tanya works holistically with a client-centered approach which facilitates healing and understanding. Her practice is a space that honors your whole being, seeing your body, mind, and spirit as one integrated system. Tanya has 24 years in the natural health and mental health arenas with a wide array of experience and skill to draw on and utilize, whilst keeping your goals and healing a priority. Tanya has also written an eBook called The New Self-Care. Turn your life around with this new, heartfelt concept that puts you first. Tanya also specialises in working with narcissistic abuse recovery and also works with couples, offering couples counselling. There are a few other lovely offerings I could imagine here, but let's get chatting. Let's join the conversation here. Let's chat with Tanya Wilson. Hi Tanya, and welcome to the A Better Way of Being podcast. It's lovely to have you join the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. You have such a wonderful counselling practice that you've really grown there in Adelaide, from couples counselling to psychotherapy sessions to you even offering meditations for healing practices. Where did it all start, Tanya? What led you down that path of putting something together and wanting to help people connect with themselves and each other in this holistic counselling way?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. I guess it all started because I originally was a body worker, so I did massage and healing work for a long time, since I was 18 actually. So I had about 25 years in that industry doing healings and massage and body work. And through that experience, what I found over the years was that oftentimes clients would come in and they would talk to me and they hadn't even gotten on the table yet, And so I'd commonly find myself halfway into a massage session, for example, and I'd have to say to the client, do you want to hop on the table now? Because they'd still be sitting in the chair talking to me,
Yes.
And so I had this inkling that, counselling and talking with people was a big part of the, healing work.
Yes.
It's just, healing can be done, we don't necessarily need to be on a table in order for healing to happen. And I guess that's what really came to my attention, particularly in the later years of my career. Once I'd been doing massage and body work for such a long time, that was happening more and more and more. And in fact, I got to the stage where I felt like people were sharing so much with me verbally that I felt that I needed more skills. I needed to have something to help me to cope with what I was hearing. How do I cope with the content of what I'm hearing? And am I responding in the right way? Am I giving this person what they really need in my responding? And so at the time I was living in Darwin in Northern Territory, and there wasn't any counselling training up there. And so when I eventually moved back to Adelaide, that's when I decided that I would formally study counselling, because essentially I felt like I had been doing it for a while informally in my practice, and I wanted to get those skills. So I went and did the training, and the college that I happened to do the training at also taught art therapy. And so at the time I was very interested in that as well. And so I ended up doing a double diploma in art therapy and transpersonal counselling, and and eventually got my qualification to do something that I felt I was kind of already doing, but I really wanted the formal skills to be able to do it properly. So, yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. It's almost like it was there for you to do all along. And people even saw that before you realised.
Yes.
You were doing it,
Definitely.
Yeah, but good on you to connect so deeply to that feeling and go on and do the studies. To be able to, for yourself as well, know that you're sharing not stimulating something in someone that's you don't know how to handle.
That's
Fantastic.
right, exactly. Yeah. It was a really good journey, and I really love that. You know, inside of me, in my kind of deepest core, I think of myself as a healer, you know, so I know I'm a healer, and it's just at different times of my life, it's manifested in different ways. You know, to me, it doesn't really matter whether I'm a massage therapist or a body worker or a kinesiologist or a counsellor. These are just different manifestations, different ways of me expressing being a healer.
Yes, how beautiful. And even like you've got all that knowledge within you, you can tap into those different aspects to give the most complete and whole healing session or
I hope so.
counselling session for your clients.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And so even though these days, you know, I'm in a chair over there and the client's in a chair over there, and there's no physical touch and there's no massage table, you know, we're just sitting in a counselling room doing counselling. It's still, I guess, comforting and nice for me to know that, well, I'm still a healer. It's just happening in a different way.
Yes. And don't forget you wouldn't, and the energy, and listeners, even just the energy off of words. Or the right words, the projection of the love and the compassion on our words, and just listening as well. Is a huge form of healing for someone that just, needs to be heard.
Yes, absolutely. So much. I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Now, psychotherapy. Could you share with listeners a bit about that and how it can help, and perhaps what would someone be experiencing for themselves in their life that a psychotherapy session may actually help?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really good place to start with this discussion is that, you know, often people get misinformed, or they misunderstand the differences between different types of counselling or mental health services. And so in Australia we have, and you know, it's common all over the world, but slightly different in different cultures, but would be similar in other parts of the world as well. But definitely in Australia we have psychiatry, psychology, psychotherapy and counselling. Now, psychiatry, psychology and psychotherapy all sound similar. So it's not uncommon that I would have someone book in for a session with me thinking that I'm a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You know, they've just seen the word psychotherapist and misunderstood what it was, you know. And that's very, very common, you know, so there's not that very much public knowledge about the differences between all these different forms or styles of mental health service. And so as a psychotherapist, what my focus area is really the development of the soul of the person. And so we're really working on that spiritual as well as personal development, and really kind of getting to a place of self, or the aim to get to the place of self-actualization or self-realization. And so that can include so much. And not to say that a psychiatrist or psychologist may not also be aiming for that same type of growth or development with their clients. You know, some of them do, but they come from a medical model. And so psychiatry and psychology are a medical model based type of work, whereas psychotherapy is much more to do with the humanistic side, you know, so it's more to do with the communication and the humanity, you know, so we're much more involved in the communication and the person and their personality, as well as their spiritual world, as well as, you know, where they want to get to in terms of their I guess their own personal development in that self-actualization or self-realization.
Wow.
Now, counselling is also different again. And so as a counsellor, counselling really is more about the day-to-day struggles or an issue that someone wants resolved. And so all of us do counselling work. A psychologist will do counselling work. Sometimes a psychiatrist will do counselling work. A psychotherapist will definitely do counselling work. And a counsellor will also do counselling work. And so it can get very confusing for the general public because all of us use counselling skills in our work. But essentially the difference between having counselling and having psychotherapy is that the counselling is much more about working with an issue and working with it until you get some sort of resolution to that issue or problem. Whereas psychotherapy takes you beyond the issues and problems and much more along that track of your personal and spiritual development and working towards self-realisation, self-actualisation. So counselling will stop once a issue or a problem is solved. Psychotherapy can keep on going and just uncovering and working through layers and becoming more and more self-actualized over time.
Wonderful. Well, and thank you for explaining that. It's so interesting. And you're right, they almost do sound the same. I really love the way you've explained the counselling and the psychotherapy because all very beneficial. But I love the extra side of the psychotherapy because we are a multi-layered, multi-dimensional being, and some of the issues or problems could have all those different layers within them from our soul, from our spirit. So unpacking that is almost like you're deepening the resolution from a soul level for complete healing with an issue.
Yes, that's right. And a lot of the clients that come in and see me, I sense that that's what they like about the process, that's why they're here rather than, someone else that works in a different way, because they're actually interested in that soul development and getting to work through many different layers of what's going on for them. So, they're perhaps not so happy with just resolving an issue. They want to know, well, why did the issue happen in the first place? And how did I get there? And what does that mean about me as a person? And what does that mean about me in relationship to my world, And so usually I find that a lot of people that are attracted to psychotherapy will be kind of very inquisitive and really like to kind of get to the bottom of things. They really like to understand the deeper reasons why things are happening,
And that's beautiful. And I'm hearing, seeing, even feeling more of it, that in some level we're awakening, that we want to know a bit more in depth about ourselves and, the source of where we came from and why we do what we do and why we have the emotions that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. Is this where you do any of the art therapy?
Look, I do bring that in from time to time because I am trained as an art therapist. I do have that as a bit of a tool in my toolbox.
Yes.
But often when I use art therapy is when, sometimes for some people it can be a struggle to think through things or to verbalize things.
Yes.
And so in those cases, being able to use an art medium to help them express what they're feeling or what they're sensing can be a really great way of them actually getting benefit out of the session without necessarily needing to dive into the talking or to get kind of caught up in the talking or the thinking.
Yes.
And so art therapy is a really great medium for helping to take someone into those unconscious realms, so we're privileging the unconscious, we're privileging the part of us that normally doesn't get a look in when we're in our conscious kind of intellectual mind. So we're really diving a little bit kind of deeper and we're bypassing the conscious mind and really getting into what's underneath by using those art therapy tools.
Yes.
I don't do a lot of it. I tend to do a lot of the talking therapy and altered state process work. So altered state process work is, I guess if you think about hypnotherapy, it would be very similar to hypnotherapy where I guide the client through a meditative process to help them access a deeper layer of their insights or resources that might be there. And art therapy does do the same thing in that way. It follows the same pathway but just in a different way. So rather than talking about it and using meditation, we're using art mediums. So, it could be
Yes.
chalks, it could be pastels, it could be paint on paper, it could be clay even,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have been involved with doing interactive drawing therapy.
Oh, wow.
And I really find that, like you were saying, for someone that can't perhaps communicate
Yes.
how they're feeling, to encourage the story to be drawn, whether, as you said, with the different mediums,
Yeah.
can really take that layer of having to discuss it
Yeah.
out to draw. I mean, you don't have to be an artist to do
No.
art therapy, because
Exactly.
it comes out from the body. It's a wonderful practice. Yeah, I was very
Yeah.
interested when you spoke about that
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And it can be really good, so sometimes, like you were saying, when you can't talk about something, that can be a really great way to help to express. And so sometimes in therapy, in psychotherapy, we might get to a place where someone's tapping into something that happened very early in childhood. So we're actually tapping into this place that's pre-verbal.
Yes.
So at the time that an event or an emotion happened that might have been traumatic for someone, or it might have been something that happened that, the child didn't understand at the time what was going on. They also didn't have words to be able to express at the time. And so when we're going into process work in psychotherapy, sometimes people will tap into that, and they can feel something, but they can't actually express it in words. And so that's another great example of when the art therapy toolbox can come out to help people when, we might have tapped into an area that is pre-verbal and they actually they can't connect words with the feeling because they're tapping into or they're regressing to a time where they didn't have words yet.
Yes, yeah.
So that's also a helpful time to utilise the art therapy as well.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, wonderful. And you, couples sessions,
Yeah.
you also do couple counselling. So could you explain a bit about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's couples counselling is an area of my work that just brings me a lot of joy, and I'm so glad that I did open up my practice to move in that direction.
Yes.
And I tend to use a lot of kind of, I guess, my background and personal experience, having been part of couples counselling myself in different relationships that I've been in, and also some of my coaching work comes into couples counselling as well. So I'm very much an advocate for it's not really about the session, it's about what clients do in between the session in couples counselling that will work. And so I provide a container for couples where I ask that they commit to sessions for a month, and they see me every week for a month. But within that month, we do a variety of individual as well as couples sessions, so that I can get to hear really clearly and really in an in-depth way each person's side of the story. Whereas what will happen is when a couple are sharing the space together at the same time, it's unlikely that they'll really go deeply into what they're feeling themselves. Whereas when they're in an individual session, they feel a little bit more free to go into that. And so that's the way that I kind of set up my couples counselling, is that they each have individual sessions and they also have the combined couples sessions together, so that I'm really hearing each person's side of the story, what's going on for each of them. And then when they do the session together, I can be a really good mediator for helping them to understand each other. But also within those couple sessions, I like to give couples, I guess, a training ground where they can practice some really good communication skills. So by getting to know them individually and also getting to know them as a couple, I can then suggest what communication skills they're missing, and I actually get them to practice it in the room. And a lot of people don't like it when I do this with them, because it's like, this feels so weird, I'm not used to this, and it feels really confronting, and I get them to face each other and to practice these communication skills that I can see are needed in the relationship. And then I ask that they go away and they practice that, so I get them to practice those communication skills in between sessions. And the couples that do the work, the couples that go away and actually practice those communication skills, will be the couples that really thrive, and they do a month of work with me and they finish that month and they're just so happy, and they're, really on track with, I guess, how to get along, how to communicate, and to know kind of the trajectory of that relationship, then where that's heading and what they need to do. So yeah, it's really, really enjoyable work, but it's very interactive and very proactive is the way that I work with the couples counselling.
Okay, and the way you described it, I love the way you set up that safe and sacred container individually for both, and then together. What a wonderful space to come into to talk about what couples will need to talk about. Fantastic. That must be quite good for you to even know that you're helping at that level.
Yeah, that's right. And do you know what, sometimes it is that a couple will realize that, okay, it's time for something to finish here. You know, it might be that there is a natural ending to that relationship, that it's complete and they're both ready to move on, and through the couples counselling process they can work out that that's actually where they're at. I have like a personal belief that, you know, we can all grow and change together, you know, so I really love that when relationships can continue to thrive and continue to grow and change, because we're all growing and changing every day. So you can be with the same person for a really long time but feel like you've had many different relationships with them, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, so it just comes down to personal choice and personal preference as to whether we decide to do that with different people or whether we want to do that with the same person, you know. But hopefully I can help people to work out, you know, what their preference is and how they would like to do that. And if they want to do that together, then there's some really great skills that they can learn to keep doing that together.
Yes, fantastic. And I can see your energy just talking about it. You know, I don't know what you'd be producing and projecting in a room to hold that container. Fantastic. And, wow. And Tanya, you specialise in narcissistic abuse recovery. I would really love for you to explain, because I just have a sense that it generally goes under the carpet. But it's time to talk about it, and how to acknowledge it, to see it, and would you share a bit about what you do in that area?
Thank you for asking, because I agree with you. I think it's an area that's generally been swept under the carpet a lot, and it is something that is becoming more and more known. You know, people are becoming more and more educated on narcissistic abuse, and that it's not just a colloquial term, that this is an actual thing that happens. And people are understanding it a little bit more. And so nowadays I'm finding people are seeking me out rather than me educating them and letting them know, hey, I think you might be in a relationship with someone that's narcissistic, which is what used to happen years ago. Whereas now it's more so people will be calling up or emailing me saying, hey, I heard you specialise in narcissistic abuse. I think I've got this going on in my life. So that public knowledge is becoming more and more, you know, people are learning about it and understanding it a lot more.
Yes, that is brilliant. And it's great that you're...
My throat.
It's great that you're getting out there. You're right.
Yeah.
And
got a croaky throat.
And the information, people are now seeking you out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, narcissistic abuse is different to other abuse, domestic violence and abuse situations. And that's the bit that people often get caught up on, is that when they research, you know, perhaps domestic violence or domestic abuse, they feel like something's missing. There's something going on that's missing, or they end up feeling like they're the abusive one. Because in narcissistic abuse, what the narcissist will often do is what I call the bait and switch. So the narcissist in the relationship will prod and provoke the other partner until they react in some way. And so often in a narcissistic relationship, there's this dynamic where there is someone who's not narcissistic who will end up feeling quite angry, aggressive, violent, because they've been essentially kind of backed into a corner and prodded and provoked so much that they get into a position where they feel like they have to fight their way out of that corner. And so actually a lot of people, when they come to me, they're coming to me because they're like, appalled at themselves. They're kind of feeling really shameful and really appalled because they've done something violent or aggressive to their partner.
Mm-hmm.
But as we unpack that, what becomes very evident is that they were just trying to protect themselves. They were trying to get themselves out of that corner that they've been backed into by the narcissist. And narcissistic abuse tends to be very, they tend to be very intelligent types. They tend to be very strategic about the way that they do this. And so it can happen over a long period of time where they're really provoking someone until they break, essentially.
Okay.
And when they break and they do, have an outburst or some sort of violent outburst or aggressive outburst, that's when the narcissistic person will then label them as abusive.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there's this whole dynamic of all of this emotional and psychological abuse happening from the narcissist toward their partner. But then the partner will have to eventually act out in some kind of way to either fight back or to try and break free of this cycle. And this is why you might have heard the term crazy making, because essentially that is crazy making. The person who's actually the healthy person in the relationship ends up feeling like they're the aggressive one, that they're the abusive one, basically because they've been provoked into that over time by the narcissist.
Yes. Okay.
So I've kind of explained there essentially the cycle of narcissistic abuse and how it works. And there is that bait and switch in there. So the cycle of abuse is different. The cycle of narcissistic abuse is very much the narcissist baiting the partner into then becoming abusive towards them. So then they can say, look, it's not me, it's them. Look at her or him.
Yeah.
He's yelling and screaming at me. He's punching and kicking me, or she's punching and kicking me, or look at her breaking things or smashing things all over the place. Okay, if you were to look at that, would look quite aggressive, wouldn't it? And you would think as a, perhaps a fly on the wall, you'd go, oh, wow, that there's someone there that's being abusive or aggressive.
Yeah.
But really what's happened is they're responding from all of this emotional and psychological abuse.
That has built up.
It has built up over time, So that's quite often how narcissistic abuse ends up, and it's quite degrading and debilitating for the person that's, that's not narcissistic, because they see themselves change over time. They see themselves go from usually a happy-go-lucky, sharing, loving, giving person to someone that's aggressive and violent in their relationship, and that's absolutely kind of soul-destroying for them. So that process of recovery is really helping someone to understand what they've been through and that it's not their fault, that they've been emotionally and psychologically abused until they get to that point, and then helping them to unwind that, unravel all of that so that they can heal from the trauma of the emotional and psychological abuse, and understand that they're not an aggressive, violent person and that they can come back from that and really help themselves to heal that trauma.
Wow, yes. And that would be such a depth of healing for what a person, as you have explained, with feeling the guilt, the craziness that they what's going on, and it's
absolutely
fantastic that you're offering a service in that area. That is, from what you're saying, is becoming more and more known now as to what is actually going on, and people can recover. Back to self.
That's right, exactly. And see, what's happened a lot in the past before narcissistic abuse was really understood, and look, it still happens now because there aren't very many therapists that specialise in this area. So I hear this a lot in my practice where people will be, I've been to therapy over and over, but no one really seems to get it. No one really seems to understand. And I think that's what clients really get a lot out of when they come and see me, is that they feel understood, they feel heard, because I can really pick the difference between, say, domestic abuse and the domestic abuse that is from narcissistic abuse. I can understand it, I can see it, I can then help and explain it to them.
Yes.
But essentially what happens is when someone goes to therapy and they've been in a narcissistic abusive relationship, often the therapist will, and using their skills as a counsellor or a therapist, will try and help them with relationship building, right? They'll try and help them with communication skills. And they might even say to them, look, I've been aggressive or I've been violent towards my partner and I don't want to do that anymore. So the therapist will naturally work on that person with helping them to not be so violent, to not be so aggressive, to be more understanding towards their partner, to have better communication skills.
Yes.
Now, that's all well and good if you're in relationship with a healthy, functional adult.
Yes.
But if you're in relationship with a narcissist, you go to therapy and the therapist essentially will compound that guilt and that feeling of I'm the bad one here.
Yes.
If they don't understand, if they can't spot narcissistic abuse. So oftentimes therapy ends up being counterproductive for someone that's in a narcissistic relationship because they get seen in therapy as the abusive one and get treated as if, you know, they need to have anger management or they need to, you know, learn how to emotionally regulate and they need to get better communication skills. And none of that works when you're with a narcissist. So the person will essentially end up feeling more and more defeated because they're like, I've been to therapy for years and I still can't get it right. Well, the reason they can't get it right is because they're with a narcissist usually.
Yeah, right. And what a compounding effect that type of a process would do. And I can imagine the relief when you know, you come to yourself who specialises in that area, can ask a few different questions and then realise, oh, hang on a minute. And what a shedding of light that would be to finally, for a person coming to you that has had all that other counselling and just not getting anywhere, to think, wow, okay, someone's hearing me.
Someone's finally heard, someone's finally understood. And to be honest, I've had clients that, you know, have been diagnosed with some quite serious, you know, personality disorders or mental health disorders. They've been diagnosed with these, but really what it was all of these presenting symptoms coming out because they were with a narcissist.
Yeah, wow.
And as soon as they've removed themselves from this narcissistic relationship and done the trauma healing, none of those presenting symptoms come forward anymore, you know. So someone that's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, you know, now doesn't have those things because they're not with a narcissist and they've done their trauma work, you know. And so this is the effect that narcissistic abuse recovery can have on people, can dramatically change the trajectory of their life once they're understood and once they're able to get into healing for recovery from that.
That's just such a powerful process. That, and I really hope that there's a question in there that all the counsellors and everybody starts to ask just to double check that. So because I can imagine that all that that diagnosis would come with treatments, you know, prescriptions, and necessarily perhaps you don't need to have them.
That's right.
Oh, you're working in a wonderful field.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah, I can see that it brings a lot of light to people, you know, that relief and that weight off of their shoulders that they might have been carrying for years starts to lift once they realise what's really going on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Good on you for holding the space for that and treading into that area that clearly, from what you're saying, is not well known.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Tanya, you've actually got an ebook which I'd like to just talk about. Now, let me get the title right. The New Self-Care, Turn Your Life Around with this new heartfelt concept that puts you first.
Yes.
And straight away when I had a read, love the title. And how often do we not put ourselves first? So inspiration, what led you to be writing the book? And
actually, it's really interesting, that one, because in my counselling practice, I would often hear people say, I know I just need to be more self-caring. I know I need to put myself first. I know I need to do more self-care. And I would hear this over and over again. And I was kind of feeling like, also on a commercial level, people were getting very manipulated into buying things or doing things under this guise of self-care, but really they weren't being self-caring, you know.
Yeah.
So that typical thing of going off and having a massage or getting your nails done, or I don't know, having certain health foods available in the house, or, you know, all these things that are just kind of, I guess, commercially advertised to us that we need to do in order to look after ourselves. And I felt like there was this whole big manipulation happening there.
Yes, exactly.
You know, being aware of narcissistic abuse and working with narcissism, I guess my, you know, I'm very aware if someone's manipulating someone somewhere. Yes, you know, I'm acutely aware of that. Yes. I can pick it a mile away. Yeah. And so I was kind of sensing that a lot of my clients were getting manipulated by advertising and media to buy or to do things in order to be self-caring. And what I know about self-care is that self-care comes from a very deep inner level. We don't have to buy anything or do anything to be self-caring, you know. You might want to do that. That could be a choice, but you don't have to in order to be self-caring. And so I really wanted to kind of set the story straight about what is self-care and how to do it without necessarily needing to buy anything or to do anything in particular, you know, that you can actually be self-caring rather than doing or buying anything.
Yes. Wonderful.
And so I was hoping that I could change the perspective on self-care to be something that is a state of being, rather than something we need to do or buy.
Yeah, and we can have it from within us.
Yeah, exactly.
So how could listeners get a copy?
Well, all they need to do, it's a free ebook. So all they need to do is to go to my website, and on that first page of the website, they'll see they'll see the book, and you just kind of click on that, and it says, yes, please send me my free copy. Yes. And so you just click on that little button, and then by magic, the processes that are set up in there will send them a free digital copy.
Yes. That's brilliant. And Tanya, I will put that information at the beginning of the podcast. So listeners, please, it's free. And what a generous offering to learn about how we can do the self-care from within. And the process is easy because I've gone through and done it.
And it's about that awareness. And it's very clear, basic steps, and building that awareness of how to be self-caring. And it's that change of that attitude, that adjustment in attitude of how to be self-caring rather than thinking that you need to do something or buy something.
Yes, exactly. And when we can look after ourselves from within, we become such stronger, more powerful, empowered, I should say, individuals. Yeah,
definitely. And that's something that I like to offer for free because, you know, it's kind of underpins a lot of my work. So whether I'm working with couples, whether I'm working in narcissistic abuse, whether I'm working with someone in some other area to do with counselling, that self-care stuff kind of underpins a lot of it. So if I can give people that information right off the bat, you know, and then you're already going to be steps ahead and be able to get that self-healing that perhaps people are looking for or wanting or needing.
Yes, exactly. And if they can't get to you, they've got a book or an ebook that they can read as a reboost or a reminder. Okay, that's what I can be doing with myself until I go and see Tanya.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So how can people get in contact with you?
The best way is through my website. So if they go to the website and they can either, there's a little contact form on there, or they can email me. So my email address is tanya@tanyamwilson.com. So either through the website or via email is the best way to get in contact with me. I do have a fairly busy practice, so it does mean that I'm with clients most of my working days. So, you know, if you do get in contact, it might be, you know, 24 hours or so before I can get back to you. But I do handle all of that myself. So with the practice plus, you know, people making contact, sometimes it takes a little while, but I am there and I am listening. So, Well,
it's great to hear that you're busy and your work's getting out there and you clearly be able to help so many people. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us here on The Better Way of Being, and you're certainly playing a very important role in helping people with their well-being. and returning to a state of conscious well-being as well. So fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us here, and I wish you well with absolutely everything that you do, and may your business continue to grow.
Thank you.
Reach more people.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That's lovely. Really, really enjoyed it. It's always lovely to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
Take care.
Take care.